you're pretty outspoken about the current education industry, and it's just being able to handle criticism. How do you handle that, and just people having different views, and like as you continue to to talk about what you're doing as the company continues to grow?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because in the very early days, there is no criticism, right? Everyone's like, oh my, it's like, you don't look at like a little seedling and be like, you crappy tree, It's like, yeah, of course it's crappy. It's a seedling. But then as you start to grow, I think we got to, like, things were working so well in the early days, and the success stories were so wild that even like, I mean, one of our first students ever was like literally working in a factory, single dad, African American, jumped straight to $80,000 a year, like completely life-changing, life-altering trajectory. And like word of that started getting around Silicon Valley, and it got to the point where there was just so much incredible like hype. And I mean, everybody that I talked to was like, we're talking about you guys, and how, like my employees would make fun of me because every time we would go to dinner, we'd walk down the street and someone would want to take a picture. It's like hard to, and I definitely don't say that to boast, I don't care, but it was at such a level of like, when I was a small investor in a company called Clubhouse, and they went through the same, probably even, definitely greater extent of just like everybody is talking about you and thinking about you in their article. Like, you're such the face of attention. And as soon as that happens, the incentive shifts to, okay, here's this like company that must be crappy for some reason, and we're going to dig in and find out why. And I mean, it happens in every single company. And so you watch every company in Silicon Valley go through this wave of like, oh my gosh, it's the best thing ever. They're going to take over the world. Actually, they're not as bad as they speak. And oh my gosh, this is, the worst thing ever. And you kind of just ride those waves back and forth. But I'd never done that before, and I didn't realize that. And people told me that when we were on the way up. But I think one of my bigger mistakes was I didn't, and maybe you can't even fight this, but I didn't like dispel any of the hype when we didn't deserve it. And in my mind, it I don't want to say it didn't feel to me like we didn't deserve it. It was just like forward looking, right? Like, 10 years from now, we'll totally be doing X. But people were imagining that 3 months from now we'd be doing X, and then when we weren't doing X 3 months from now, everyone's like, oh my gosh, this, they're over-promising and under-delivering. I was like, wait, what? And then the downside of that got so vicious. And I never, the positive side was way more wild than I could have believed. And then the negative side was way more wild than I could have believed. And, I've been talking about this with some folks recently. I think because we kind of like, everybody feels very, very strongly about education and what it should be like. Everybody feels strongly about, what should be government run versus what should be private. And like, everybody feels really strongly about what is possible if you work really hard versus what is, impossible or difficult because of societal circumstances. And we're kind of like hitting all of those very sensitive points with a business model all at once. And so it's just like, I couldn't believe, like when everyone was giving us more credit than we deserved, I was like, okay, like that's, that's a little intense, but whatever, But then on the flip side of that, it was crazy. Like, and I'm sure it was because I was more sensitive to it than the other stuff, or you notice it way more. But I was not. It really screwed me up for the first time it happened. I mean, I'm talking like people sending me crazy stuff in the mail, creating Twitter accounts dedicated to just like I was really overweight then, and like people photoshopping weird stuff on fat people and being like, this is, you know, it was like, I was like, what the hell? Like, what did I do to these people? And why is there so much vitriol? And so that really, like, you know, and I was like, what am I doing that's causing this? What mistakes am I making? I would try to like make the business better. Which, you know, it's not a bad instinct necessarily, but it took me a while to realize there's nothing you can do to prevent that. And at a certain point, you just need to get thick skin and get over it. And now it doesn't bother me at all.